Chapter 17, the second part. Soon it was entirely dark, but for the fire and the moon. The flames cast light out into the city square, throwing its corners into strange dusty shapes. Con shivered as a cloud swept past the moon, lengthening the shadows. Leela hunched over and began to search Bacca's fur for ticks, avoiding Fred's eye. Fred looked towards the curtain of vines. They hung in the dark, a great green sweep of shadow covering the right-hand corner of the square. "What do you think's behind there?" he asked. "What do you think he doesn't want us to see?" "I don't know," said Con, "and I don't care." She brushed her hair in front of her eyes so nobody could see her face. "It could be an animal," said Leela. She glanced up and then away. "A panther, like in the Jungle Book." "It might be food stores," said Fred. Max sat up. "Real food?" "Why would he keep it there?" said Leela. "I was thinking there must have been a place for storing food when this city was alive, and it's where I keep stores. Somewhere almost invisible." Fred looked around, checking the Explorer was nowhere near. "I think we should go and look." "Oh, sure, that's a great idea," said Con. "You've already made him so angry he's going to let us rot here. Why not add stealing his food? He could kill you with his bare hands, but I'm sure that doesn't worry you." "I wouldn't steal. It would be borrowing, and even then, not unless we have to." "What do you mean, have to?" "If you won't help us, we might have to find other ways." "To do what?" said Con. "To find enough supplies to start the journey to Manaus." Fred gestured around the empty city. "There's not much food here." Con was growing red. "You do know this is your fault. You said if we followed the map we'd get home, and then the second you get here, you ruin it." "I didn't." Fred could feel his neck and cheeks flushing. "I didn't expect the map to lead to a madman with a pet vulture living alone in an ancient city. That's not something any of us predicted. You promised we'd get home." "We will get home," said Fred, though he was fairly sure he hadn't promised. Who was he to promise anything? But he only said, "I want to know, aren't you curious?" "No," said Con. She swiveled on her bottom and turned her back to face him. He could see the sharp thinness of her shoulder blades poking out through her blouse. He would never find out. If he could find food, Fred thought, then it wouldn't matter what the Explorer said or did. They could get back on the raft and go looking for Manaus. If he could find food, then the chill of Con's anger and Leela's disappointment might be swept away. "Do what you want. I'm not going over there," said Con. "Leela?" asked Fred. Leela had been watching them argue, her head turning from one to the other, her eyes growing steadily more unhappy. "It's getting dark. He wouldn't see us. Do you want to come?" Leela hesitated. "I don't know. He trusted us." "But he doesn't. He clearly doesn't trust us at all. He won't even tell us his name. Please," said Fred. The walls of vines hung like a threat in the corner of the city square. "It's just to look." Leela stared out across the dark square. "Fine. Okay. I'll come." "Thank you." Fred jumped to his feet. "Are you sure, Con?" "Very, very sure." "Could you look after Max?" said Leela. "He's not yet figured out how silence works, really." Con agreed, though without much pleasure. Fred and Leela moved slowly across the square, feeling their way in the half-dark. In between the avenue of trees the ground was smooth, entirely free of weeds and leaves and jungle debris, but on either side there were piles of stones, two half-ruined circular mud buildings that looked like grain stores, and shoots of growing things springing up everywhere. "What do you think this was?" Fred asked. "I don't know, but if this was the city square, then those statues would be their town monuments, or maybe their gods. Like we have lions in Trafalgar Square." At the thought of them, a gust of longing for home swept over him. "Yes, our papa talks about them, and then everyone would live around the sides of the central avenue, or up in the jungle in the tree houses. That's how I'd do it, anyway." "He's crazy to tell us to keep it secret," said Fred. "It's amazing. It's not like anything I've ever seen in my life." He glanced at Leela from the corner of his eye. "He can't keep it all for himself." Leela didn't reply. She only stared fixedly ahead. There was the sound of footsteps running behind them. Fred sprang round, but it was Con with Max in tow. "We changed our minds," said Con, panting hard, "but we're not talking to you." "She made me come," said Max. "She saw a shadow and thought it was a snake." "I didn't, you little rat." Leela and Fred exchanged glances. "You'll have to be quiet, Maxie," said Leela. "I'm always quiet," said Max with dignity. He turned to put his tongue out at his sister, tripped on a stone, and let out a howl loud enough to wake the sleeping birds. "My toe!" "Shh!" said Leela. A tree rustled, then stilled abruptly. Con looked around nervously. "Should we go back?" Fred shook his head. "You can," he said. "I need to see." As they approached the far end of the square, the clouds moved over the moon, sweeping back shadows over the statues' faces. They looked alive. Behind the statues ran a mud and stone wall high over their heads. The left edge of the wall ended in a crumbling ruin, overrun with patches of light yellow flowers. The right side vanished in a curtain of vines, the vines the explorer had forbidden them from touching. Fred approached the vines. They rustled. He stepped backwards. It might have been the wind, or something living behind them. He tried not to think of snakes. He reached out and pushed a handful of vines away. Leela joined him. Behind the vines was another, thicker curtain. They seemed plaited together like wickerwork, woven so densely Fred could barely fit a hand through the green mass. He pushed both arms into the vines, elbow deep, and tugged. There was a flash of colour amid the green, then the viruses fell back. "I can see something," he hissed. "Shh," said Con. "What?" asked Leela. "I don't know. A piece of yellow. I can't see it any more. We'd have to cut the vines," he said. He took the knife from his pocket. "No, wait," said Con. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "It is," said a voice over their heads. "An exceptionally bad idea." Fred froze. There was a smack of shoe on stone, and the explorer jumped down from the top of the wall, landing inches in front of Fred's face, grunting as his bad leg hit the ground. He straightened up, his face rigid with fury. "I asked you to stay away," he said softly. "Is that so difficult?" A cold dread shot through Fred. The look on the explorer's face was worse than being caned at school. "I'm really sorry." Fred's tongue was suddenly dry. "We just thought—" "You thought? Are you so grotesquely lacking in self-control that you cannot let a single idle thought pass through your mind without acting on it?" "We're so sorry," began Leela. "Just get away from here," said the explorer. His skin radiated hot rage. Desperation was rising in Fred's blood. He could see Max shaking with fear. He stepped in front of him. "We weren't going to take anything," he said. He felt the burn of the lie flood through him, and stumbled over the words. "We just needed to see." "I said go. Just go." "It was my fault," said Fred. "It was my idea, not theirs." "I don't care whose idea it was." The explorer pulled the knife from his belt. He pointed it at Fred's chest. "Go to bed. If I ever find you anywhere near the vines again, I'll cut off your fingers while you sleep and fry them in banana oil and feed them to the vulture for dessert." Fred turned and led the way back down the centre of the boulevard, shame pulsing in his chest. Even Max didn't make a sound.